So, when you think of neuroscience, what comes to mind? If you were to take the word neuroscience, Kayla,
The brain.
the brain, right? So, neuro refers to something related to neurons or something of that nature. So, we're going to be talking about the brain. And when we talk about the brain, we're talking about brain structure, brain functioning, and brain chemistry, right? So, um, yeah, the root is neuro. Um, Anything else come to mind for anyone? Okay,
Wait, could you repeat that real quick?
sure. When we think of neuroscience, we're going to be talking about brain structure, functioning, and chemistry. In this lesson, we cover all of them. Um, Now, that's neuroscience. And my question is, what else comes to mind?
Um, maybe the mind.
Okay. So the mind, right? So what we're trying to do is link the brain to mental functioning, right? But not just mental functioning, but behavior as well. If we go back to our first lecture and we discussed, well, what is psychology? We said it was a scientific study of behavior and mental processes. All behavior, all mental processes can be linked back to the brain. And that's why I said, as an introduction, everything psychological has a biological component. So, biology you can't avoid. Now, you might hear this lecture referred to as biological psychology. You might hear it referred to as physiological psychology. You might hear it referred to as neuroscience. And any one of these will reflect the importance of linking brain structure, functioning, and chemistry to behavior and mental processes. Now, let's start with an interesting mistake in the field. Now, there was a time when we believed that the bumps on one's skull reflected mental abilities. And this was referred to as phrenology. Now, the problem is if we map out the bumps on the outside of the head, it doesn't even correspond to the skull, let alone the brain regions. But it was believed that the more uh, endowed or the larger an area of the head was, the more the greater the functioning was. And you could pay money to have your head measured, and a person would give you a report on your mental abilities and characters. So uh, that was wrong. Moreover, you see this map of the head. They label different parts of uh, the head with different functions, and even the labels themselves turned out to be wrong. So you might ask yourself, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about a debunked idea of mental functioning? The answer is simple. Even though everything that was said was incorrect about it, there was a kernel of truth. And the kernel of truth was the concept of localization in the brain. Different parts of the brain do have different functions. And because that element was true, that's enough to talk about the concept of phrenology. Interesting, right? So even if you're incorrect, but you move science forward, it's possible for you to be discussed in the history books. And there are a lot of historical beliefs that have been subsequently disproven. It also puts a point or a spotlight on the fact that Science evolves, and what we believe today may not be what we believe in 50 years or 100 years. And in fact, I would bet on it. A lot of things that we're teaching today will turn out to be false, right? Because a science is only as good as the techniques it has to tap into a phenomenon. So as science evolves, as technology evolves, we're going to be able to do things that we can't do today. I see there's a comment in the chat. Yes, no problem. If you want to talk after class, that's fine. So that's Franz Gall. Now it's interesting. I don't know if you see in my background next to the book I wrote, there's this white head in the background over here. Can you see where my finger's pointing? Yes,
Not
no?
really.
Okay. So let me get up and I'll show you something. All right. You know, as a psychologist, we like these, you know, cool gadgets and tokens. This is a phrenology map. I know it's wrong. And in fact, my master's is in neuroscience, but I hold on to this because it's a nice reminder of, as I said, the evolution of science, and it's a cool gadget. But I keep it on my shelf as just a reminder. So that is phrenology. Now, I also mentioned that even though the introductory slide says neuroscience, we're also referring to biological psychology, right? So everything in the body is comprised of cells. Now, the cells that we talk about in the brain are called neurons, right? And in terms of neurons, we communicate through both an electrical element as well as a chemical element. And I'll explain what that means as we progress. And as I said, these are mini videos, so it'll be in its own video. But neurons operate based on an electrochemical process. So we're in the thick of biology, right? So I emphasize the synonyms of biological psychology, physiological psychology, neuropsychology. It doesn't matter which one we use. We're going to be covering these same topics. All right. Any questions on that? All right.